You can't have an art boom without money, and the Medici family, who ruled Florence for generations from palaces like this, was loaded. It was the Medici wealth, they were bankers, along with their passion for art and their supersized egos, that helped Florence fund the Renaissance and make this city the art capital of the Western world. The statues in their garden are a reminder that it was in Florence that art was first commissioned simply to be enjoyed by a wealthy elite. With the Renaissance, you had art not just to teach Bible stories or to glorify kings. Now, rich people sponsored art just for art's sake. The art-loving Medici hosted lots of famous artists, philosophers, and poets. Imagine, a teenage Michelangelo lived with them, almost as an adopted son. Leonardo da Vinci played the lute at their parties, and Botticelli actually studied the classical statues that dotted their gardens. Today, the plush world of the Medici is on display in their palaces. This lavishly frescoed family chapel takes you back to Florence, at least the Florence of its aristocratic class, in the 1400s. The walls around the altar display the Journey of the Magi, or Three Kings on their way to Bethlehem, by Benozzo Gozzoli. Showing no shortage of ego, a Medici prince portrays himself as one of the three kings. This is an idealized image of Lorenzo the Magnificent, leading a parade of Florentines through a rocky landscape. Rather than the Holy Land, the scene is set in 15th century Tuscany. Behind the king are other family members, along with the city's rich and powerful of the day. These elegant Florentine dandies are actually realistic portraits, showing the leading characters of Florence around 1450. They're wearing colorful clothes that set trends throughout Europe. The chapel doubled as a place the Medici received important guests. And by portraying their family in this religious setting, the Medici made an impressive display of power and sophistication. When potential rivals would drop by and see this, they could only think, damn, those Medici are good. On the city's main square stands the Palazzo Vecchio, Florence's city hall. While the exterior is medieval, Michelangelo's David, this one's a replica, seems to welcome you into the Renaissance world and the dawn of our modern age. The elaborate courtyard, with its Roman-inspired decoration, is textbook Renaissance. The enormous main hall is designed to impress 500 guests at the same time. In an age before it was possible to buy mass media, this was how you shaped public opinion. The art trumpeted the glory of Florence, thanks to the Medici. The frescoes recall great military victories. Florence beating Pisa, 1497. Florence trouncing Siena in 1555. The ceiling heralds the divine glory of the Grand Duke Cosimo de' Medici. Dressed as an emperor and blessed by the Pope, he was the first Medici to rule like a king. In front, you've got Leo X, the first of 3 Medici popes, giving the family some nice connections in both Rome and heaven, and explaining how the Medici family became the bankers of the Vatican. The hall is flanked by statues showing the heroic labors of Hercules, a mortal who became a half-god through his labors. A parallel not lost on wowed Florentines. Again, you gotta be impressed by those Medici. The Doge's palace, the ruling center and residence of Venice's duke, was built to show off the power and wealth of the Republic and to remind visitors that Venice was #1. Its lacy exterior, a distinct blend of East and West, is Venetian Gothic. For 4 centuries, this was the most powerful piece of real estate in Europe. The sprawling palace is a maze of richly decorated rooms. Here in the Doge's lavish apartment, a map illustrates the reach of the Venetian maritime empire, which stretched across most of the eastern Mediterranean. While it didn't have vast land holdings, Venice was a mighty trading empire built upon a network of ports and a mastery of the sea. The city was driven by an interest in dominating Mediterranean trade. And until the 16th century, when explorers like Vasco da Gama and Columbus opened up the world, leaving Venice stuck in a geographic hole, Venice did dominate. Here in the Senate Hall, nobles gathered to address their colleagues, debate, and pass laws. Glorious paintings throughout the palace reminded Venetians of their heritage and their divinely ordained greatness. Tintoretto's Triumph of Venice shows the city, always represented blonde and virtuous, in heaven among the Greek gods, receiving the wealth of the sea. The Doge was something of an elected king, which only makes sense in an aristocratic republic like Venice. Technically, he was a noble, selected by other nobles to oversee the carrying out of their laws and decisions. There were 120 Doges over 1,100 years. The vast Hall of the Great Council could host a meeting of 2,500 nobles. Tintoretto's monster piece, Paradise, the largest oil painting anywhere, reminded lawmakers that making wise decisions would ultimately put you in the company of 500 saints. And for further encouragement, the famous Bridge of Sighs led directly from the palace to its infamous prison. According to the Romantic legend, gazing out the window, prisoners tried to enjoy their last view of Venetian beauty, sighed, and were taken to their cell. Opponents of the government were dealt with swiftly and decisively. This prison, with its discouraging bars, held commoners and nobles alike. The great Venetian rogue Casanova did time here. While this prison was considered relatively comfortable in its day, wasting away in here with so much beauty so close must have been a particularly cruel punishment. The palace kept an armory on display, an intentionally intimidating array of weaponry designed to dishearten potential adversaries. Along with a powerful collection of weapons, state-of-the-art in its day, it comes with some fun curiosities, tiny crossbows, thumbscrews, and a particularly effective chastity belt. Along with economic might, the splendor of Venice was built upon a foundation of military power. Its formidable navy saw lots of action. Nearby stand the imposing gates of the Arsenal, Europe's first great military-industrial complex. The Republic's fortified shipyard with 3,000 workers using an early form of assembly line production and standardized parts, it could produce one warship a day. The Arsenal put the fear of Venice into visiting rulers. When the King of France came to town, he was taken here for a humbling spectacle, the creation of an entire warship before his very eyes. Then, after a quick glide down this canal, the vessel was completely outfitted and ready to bolster Venetian dominance of the Mediterranean. Because of its former wealth, Venice is a city of palaces. The most lavish face the Grand Canal. Enjoying the views from a vaporetto is about the best way to really appreciate the front doors of this historic chorus line of mansions, most from the 14th and 15th centuries. Palaces like these remind us that Venetian merchants amassed lots of capital. With aggressive trade policies and clever alliances, for Venice, the Eastern Mediterranean was a virtual free trade zone. As Venetian nobles traded their way into fabulous wealth, they built luxurious palaces like this one, which has been owned by the Pisani family for nearly 400 years. Their counterparts on the mainland had to fortify their places with heavy stone and tall towers. But with their natural lagoon defenses, Venetian palazzos could be sumptuous rather than fortified. A palace served all of a family's needs. Import-export warehouse at water level, business offices above that, and plush living quarters above that, all under one roof. The goods, in the case of this family, furs, salt, cotton, and coffee, came off ships through this loading dock. Today, many former palazzos survive as hotels. While there are a number of luxurious big hotels in town, my favorites are the smaller, family-run ones, which combine historic character, a warm and friendly welcome, and plenty of travel tips. At this hotel, I'm splurging to enjoy that Prince for a Day feeling in the lounge. A bedroom with all the comforts, and a terrace with a view of the Grand Canal.